So today is October 10th, 2011, and we're having a conversation with Pam in Oregon, near Dayton.
It's Oregon.
Oregon?
Oregon.
Oregon? Okay, that's Oregon. Oregon. That's my Canadian pronunciation. So one of the things I want to start with, Pam, is a little bit about your family history. Where you were born, the year, month, day, and time, if possible.
I was born April 4th, 1924 in Spokane, Washington. I don't know, about 9 o'clock in the morning, they said.
So you don't know the exact minute?
I don't know the exact date or the exact time.
Yeah, so about 9. Okay.
About 9.
Yeah.
In the morning.
Can you say a little bit about your mom and dad and brothers and sisters, if you had any?
I have one brother, 3 years older than myself, and he went into the service in the Army. That was in World War II.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was in London, and he played a trombone in the orchestra in the Army.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of fun.
And you make it back?
He made it back, yeah. And he was a bookkeeper for several different companies for his occupation. My mother was a bookkeeper at a Sunshine Biscuit Company.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad was a meat cutter, a wholesale meat cutter.
Yeah. And were they born in America?
Yeah, they were born in, my mother was born in Lind, Washington. I don't know where my father was born. That's about all I can say about that.
Okay. Could you describe a little bit about your family? Did you grow up in? Was it religious, rich, poor, kind of middle class?
We were poor. My mother and I and brother always went out to the fields and picked whatever was available and canned. We did a lot of canning.
Yeah, yeah.
And my mother took us to a Baptist church about twice a year, Christmas and Easter.
Okay. Yeah.
That's about as far as our religious movement went.
Yeah.
But we went camping every weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Always fishing. My dad loved to fish, so we camped along creeks, rivers.
Yeah.
Hiked a lot and did that sort of thing.
So you developed a love for fishing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the outdoors.
Yeah.
Could you say something about a little bit about your upbringing? What kind of a little girl were you? A princess, tomboy?
We lived. My folks built a house about a quarter mile from my grandparents, which was my grandparents' property, and I went to school at Central Valley Grade School, Opportunity Grade School, and Central Valley High School. My folks had both gone to Opportunity Grade School.
What's Opportunity Grade School? What's that mean?
That means a grade school. Grades 1 through 8.
Okay.
And they had both gone to that same school.
Oh.
That's interesting, I think.
Yeah.
My grandparents had the second house in the valley. And they built the house, a 3-story building with concrete blocks that they formed right on the property.
Wow.
Yeah.
They built the blocks on the property?
Yeah.
And what valley is that?
In Spokane Valley.
Spokane Valley. Where were your grandparents from? Were they also American born?
Yeah, I think so. But my grandfather was a wheat farmer and a railroad man down in Lind, Washington, where my mother was born. And then in Spokane Valley, he had an apple orchard.
Okay. Yeah.
And where it is now is where the Spokane Valley has the electric company, that area.
Oh. So were you the little princess or more of a tomboy?
Oh, well, when I was in high school, I was a baton major.
Oh yeah.
So I led the band both at football and basketball games.
You led the band.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, doing them.
Oh yeah. So you were a leader right off the bat. Then you had leadership tendencies.
I didn't what?
A leader. I was just thinking, if you were the baton major, you're leading the band, you have some leadership tendencies already. You weren't in the back.
Yeah.
You weren't.
I was the only baton twirler.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I would in the basketball games at the half, I would throw a lighted baton up.
Oh yeah.
In the dark, and that was always a nice big thing to do.
That would be pretty
and
flashy.
we were in the parades. We went to town, to Spokane, to parades and things.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a picture of it.
Huh.
Mom made my costume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what year would that have been in?
Oh dear.
Around the.
I was 18 when I graduated.
So that would be in the 30s sometime. You were born in 24.
24 and
30,
18.
Late mid 30s. Yeah. Okay. Did you have any clues in your early life that you would end up exploring such an expansive area?
Not at all.
None?
None.
Okay.
I was interested in playing football and doing all those kind of things. Played tennis.
Yeah.
I played in tennis enough that I got into the Spokane City tournaments.
Okay.
So that was fun.
Yeah. You was a skater too, weren't you?
Yeah, I roller skated and broke my tailbone, so I didn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I worked for the Army Air Depot and the Naval Supply Depot in Spokane and Spokane Valley. So when I worked for the Army, we went roller skating at night. I worked graveyard shift.
Oh, okay.
And so during the day we'd go horseback riding or roller skating or whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah. What kind of a family did you end up creating? Did you get married?
I married my high school sweetheart, and he went to Hawaii.
How old were you then?
I was 18.
So, married young.
And I was married about 2 years.
Yeah.
I met Kurt, my husband of 40 years, at the Naval Supply Depot. And he had what they called blue baby. The
RH negative?
blood vessel leading out of his heart was collapsed. And they didn't live to be more than 20 years old. But he was 32 already.
Oh.
So he had bleeding throughout his spinal column and outside his skull. So he had a 8-hour heart surgery. And that got him through. That was on Valentine's Day. I don't remember what year. And then when in about 1972, he had another episode where they had to put a false, like a bird cage in with the dot in it. So every time the blood, the heartbeat, it would stop and start so that it would make the blood go out. But he lived to be about 69.
How did he die?
He died the same year that Lucille did, in '84, and he died of smoke inhalation in a trailer fire.
He was a firefighter?
No, he raised rabbits.
So how did he end up in that?
He took, we were separated, and he took his truck and went down and lived down where they processed rabbits.
Yeah.
and he was living at one end of a trailer, house trailer, and it caught fire, and he went to save the other people in the other end, and he had taken in too much smoke, and he died on the way to the hospital.
Okay, I see. and then you married once again?
I wasn't married for 15 years until I met Ken, and I lived in Spokane, and he lived in right here in Dayton, and we met because of a singles group, a club that we both saw on newspaper.
Oh yeah.
In the newspaper.
Yeah.
And we joined it about the same time. And I wrote to about 20 people and sent my picture, and he answered, and we met halfway, and we decided we could live together, or at least take a vacation together. So we went to Turkey.
Oh yeah.
On a 80-foot sailboat, and went through all of the little towns and villages and slept on the boat.
Nice.
And then we went from there, that was a tour, and then by ourselves we went to Crete and Greece, and then came home. He went to Tibet, no, not, to Nepal, on a trek, 15-day trek, and I went to Egypt with another gal I met from Oregon. And when he got home, we got married.
Wow.
I sold my place in Valley Ford and moved down here.
And that was about 23 years ago.
Yeah, 23 years ago, and we've been married ever since. Now, Ken has been a great part of my life because he was a computer programmer, so he got I wanted to do all of the communications that I had received, which were carbon paper and really bad. So I wanted to recopy them so that I could read them. And so I got a word processor and started working on that.
So just excuse me for a minute. So were those the transcripts, the carbon copy transcripts that were made from the tapes of the group meetings?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have all of those, and because Kurt and I were in Lucille's group in Spokane, we received all of the copies of the different groups.
So all of the group sessions that were going on at Spokane, you received those copies.
Yes,
you
but also from California, wherever she went.
So there was groups being held in different parts of the country.
Wherever she went.
And so then she would translate or transcribe those tapes and then pass them to you?
Yes.
So then you kept all the copies of...
She didn't type them. We always had somebody who could type.
Okay.
And I was the one who did it in Spokane.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Now I went to, after I was in Lucille's class for about a year, she asked me if I wanted to take station training, and I said yes. So I quit my job at the Bon Marché. I was doing payroll at the Bon Marché.
Bon Marché?
Bon Marché,
Cool.
yeah. It's a big department store.
Okay.
And then I would ride in with Kurt every day. He would go to work, and I would stay at her house during the day, 5 days a week. So I took training from her for a year. And when I was finally finished, after about a year, they said that it wasn't station training for a master, but it was for training to teach how to contact the ashram and the concepts, and be able to have an alignment with that teaching so that I could explain concepts in layman's terms, and that's how I did my station work.
So that was the station. So that's kind of like the station training. How would you describe station training?
Every day I would meditate with Lucille, then I would write. They would either give me a concept, they, including the Master R, which was personal communication, and I was put on a diet so that my frequency would get up high enough so that I could actually contact some of these abstract concepts. And then I would write every day. In the afternoon, and while I was writing, Lucille would be writing her lessons in the same room. And then in the afternoon, we'd go for a walk or do something. I would type everything that she wrote so that it was recorded, typed. And she had 5 kids at that time.
5. How old would they be, approximately?
They were just in school.
Okay, so they're already in school. They're not toddlers.
While she was in Spokane, she had gray cedar crayons as a student, and it developed so that they got married. And while I was in training, they had Deborah. So while I was there, I was able to see her, and part of what Lucille brought through, that Deborah brought through most of the thought form presentation of the wisdom as she incarnated.
So as Lucille's baby was incarnating, that was bringing through some of the,
yes,
most of the thought form presentation,
yes,
through the incarnation of the child.
yes.
That's an interesting concept.
And this is a borning process.
So the borning was not only borning a human being, but it was borning a thought form.
Yes, the whole thought form.
Is there a term to describe that? I've never heard of that concept before. Or is that just new?
It's new. I don't know how to describe it, but all along, while I was in training, that was part of what we were bringing through. We were a group receptive.
Yeah.
Lucille was the station to bring the abstract concept through into the group. We would discuss it, and then if the discussion developed good enough, then Master R would bring through more through Lucille. But if we balked, if we got too much energy, then he would say, well, we're just going to have to wait for another time because you're not ready.
Right.
You had to be able to receive the energy along with the concept, or it wouldn't work. She couldn't bring anything more because we couldn't accept it.
Can you describe the difference between the energy and the concept? Is there a way to describe that? Or?
A thought form.
So the concept is the thought form, the energy is the subjective vibration?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Absolutely. So that every concept is a thought form of this concept, of this thought form presentation. So that when we align with a concept, focus on it enough, and long enough, and with a high enough frequency, we can merge with it and it will come into our awareness. We write it down, which grounds it.
Yeah.
And then we have embodied it. So this is what all this training is about. We do a recap so that we can bring it right down and discuss it and then write it, so that we have all 3 bodies have accepted that concept. And we'll take it through every incarnation from then on, because that's part of us. That part goes back into the ashram when we die, and we bring it back when we reincarnate.
Okay.
Where were we?
We got lost with a little bit with.
We got lost.
We had a just.
I didn't have any children. I had 3 miscarriages.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any children, so that's and my brother did not either, so we didn't carry the family name on.
Okay, well, how did you initially become interested in your spiritual search? What started it?
My husband was working at the Bon Marché in the paint department.
Is that husband is?
Kurt.
Kurt, okay. Was working in the paint department at the same company you were working at?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was payroll and he was a paint salesman.
Yeah.
And his buddy, who also worked in the paint department, said, we're going to go to a flying saucer group meeting. Do you want to go? So, of course, we wanted to go. And it turned out that that meeting was not about flying saucers. It was about Lucille's work. And the man who was doing the group meeting became our teacher.
And who was that?
And that was Ward Fuller.
Is he still alive?
Ward, no, died while I was in training. Funny thing about that too was that I used to use the upstairs bathroom, and when he died, I couldn't go up there. It just scared the dickens out of me. I asked her if I could use the downstairs room. I don't know why I was such a whiz, but I couldn't. I couldn't do it.
So
anyway.
you got that was your first indication in your whole life of anything on a spiritual.
Yeah.
You'd never studied in.
No.
So up until then, you'd only had a little bit of religious training.
I was just having fun.
Yeah.
I was just having fun.
So that was your first.
So when we got to study in the group that Ward Fuller had attracted, then we got into Lucille's group, and then we were caught. I mean, this was it for us.
You knew right away.
Yeah, and there was no question. I mean, this was it. And
but that was pretty radical
Kurt
thinking.
was teaching the group then when Ward went to Portland to do lectures. Kurt took over his group.
So
not
Kurt,
Lucille's group.
So Kurt was quite interested too then.
Yeah, he was a really good teacher, and I wasn't. I wasn't anything. I just went along.
So that was pretty radical. Those were really radical concepts.
Not for me.
They weren't?
No.
Oh.
My folks. I tried to tell my folks about it. I don't understand. So I never tried.
So right away, you're immediately attracted to it.
Yeah, it was like that was what I should be doing.
Okay. There
was no question. Just okay, give it to me.
Even back then, that's just that without any kind of searching, and all of a sudden, bam, and oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So where were we?
And you were, I just want to try and get a framework of around how old you were then. You were married, so you were married.
I was 32.
And you're married to Kurt. You've been.
He was 8 years older than I was.
He's around 40, you're around 32, and you've been married for a few years. Probably.
About 3.
Yeah. So you're in the early stage of your married life with Kurt, and you come across this stuff. This information that changed your life. Sounds like in quite a different direction.
Yeah.
So you started to getting really clear. So how did you end up meeting Lucille then? It was through that group.
Yeah, it was through Ward.
So then, can you tell me a little bit about how the association with you and Lucille developed, and what was your first impressions of Lucille when you met her? You remember that?
we would sit around in her living room. There were 7 or 8 or 10 people, and having cigarettes and smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee and laughing and having a good time. And then she'd sit up and she said, "I have a contact." And of course we knew that this was coming because we had talked about masters. So she would start bringing through Master R, and she never closed her eyes like she was in meditation, but she would kind of look away and like she wasn't seeing anything, but she was bringing through this communication, and he would bring through a concept, always a concept. And then every paragraph he'd say, "Do you understand? Are there any questions?" And of course, dumb us, we didn't know anything. What kind of a question do you ask? But that was the way it went.
And so what was your impression of Lucille when you first met her? Here's this woman who
she's really fun, a lot happy. And
she was a redhead, wasn't she?
Laughed a lot.
She laughed a lot?
Oh yeah, she was always laughing. I don't know what else.
So a lot of energy? High energy kind of person?
When she brought through communication, it was so heavy. The energy was so heavy that we all had a band around our head. Like forehead. Now this was very symbolic of the cave and head and all of the centers in the head and the alignment. And it was hard because it got so heavy.
Yeah.
And we would discuss it, whatever the concept was, and as we discussed it, then this pressure began to release. And it would happen every meeting that you'd walk into the room and this heavy energy was there right away.
Yeah.
And as we got the concept and discussed it, then we gradually released the energy.
So that, we talked a little bit about this before we got on tape. So it's almost like the energy, once it becomes embodied, it's filtering through that tension, and it dissipates the tension because the tension is actually blocking it.
Yeah.
And so then that's the continual flow.
Yes.
It has to flow, otherwise that tension gets created.
We have to accept the energy to allow it to come through. We can't force it.
Right.
We can't raise our frequency to it. We just have to open up to it.
Yeah.
And if we can understand it with our mind, our brain mind, then it starts to release.
Right.
And if we ask questions, then of course that really releases it.
Okay, and that actually draws it through too,
yes,
right?
Yes.
That's the importance of questions. That it actually helps to open that up, and that's why the group was so important.
Mm-hmm.
And the group, why he was always asking for questions.
Yes, it's always a body receptive. If a teacher has a group, he is the station for that particular teaching, that lesson, and this is the body receptive. So this energy has to come through and into that group, all 3 levels, mental, astral, etheric, before it really comes down into the brain.
Yeah. Okay. So you've talked a little bit about your training. Would you like to say anything more about what your training was like?
I was on a diet, practically nuts and berries.
Really?
Really. No starch, no sugar, no meat. What else is there? You know, vegetables.
No milk, no dairy.
No milk, no dairy,
So
no
really,
cheese, no anything.
nuts and berries.
And I was so high strung but I was ready to bloom. So finally, Master R put me on a little chicken, and you know, started filling me in with other food. But the result of that, my thyroid was mixed up, so I have to take thyroid pills for the rest of my life. So I am not a vegetarian. I watch my diet really close, but I'm not a vegetarian because I need that protein.
Yeah.
Some people don't, some people do.
Yeah, everybody's a little different, eh?
Yeah. So I went to California with Lucille. We drove down and met Margaret Buxton. She was one of, she's at, I have it here someplace.
Margaret Buxton.
Wrightwood, California, up in the mountains, above San Bernardino, I forget where, anyway. So we went up there and had a 3-week interview.
You and Lucille were
the three of us.
Yeah.
Margaret was the station too.
Okay.
And Lucille had already trained her long before she met me, I guess. I don't know.
So
I'm fuzzy on who met where.
Yeah, so Lucille sounds like Lucille trained a number of stations.
She did. She trained Billy Roberts. And when I was in training, she trained Lois Maxwell, who later married Peter Harris. And Myrtle Morgan. While I was in training, she trained the other two too. Myrtle Morgan wrote the Younger Brothers series, which is just beautiful. It should be in publication, but I haven't done it because I was just focused on Lucille's work, and so was Wisdom Impressions.
So I don't understand exactly what Younger Brothers is. What can you say a little bit more about that?
Oh, it's just a little series she wrote. It was about the Lord's Prayer.
Okay.
And how it really means what it really means.
Oh.
The Lord's Prayer.
I'll bet you there's lots of people that would be very interested in that.
I would think so.
Do you still have it?
But I don't. Yes, I do. But I don't know how to get it out to others. It's just a really nice little.
Maybe we could talk about that after.
Yeah, I could put it on internet or something.
So then you were training with another station. So was this station being trained the same way as you were, which was developing a teaching alignment?
No, the other ones were actually bringing through masters.
Okay.
And they allowed me to bring Master DK through for whenever Lucille was present, just because I had earned the right. Because
okay.
I had done the training and I had reached that point where I could, but I couldn't maintain that frequency. That was not my job.
Right. Okay. This is kind of just popped into, just as an aside, was there much referred to as regarding Serapis Bay, that whole energy of...
She brought him through once.
Once, so it was...
Twice, I think, Serapis Bay. And it was so beautiful because it was harmonic. I can't describe it, but it was so beautiful.
So quite a different energy.
Oh yeah, definitely. All of the masters had different energy.
Yeah. Okay. So then you're up there, and you and Lucille and Margaret are spending a week.
3 weeks.
3 weeks together.
Mm-hmm.
Training.
Yeah. Mostly telling me that I wasn't station material, master station material. And I was a little shocked, of course, because I had been told that I was going to be a station, and I didn't realize that I wasn't. And Lucille didn't realize that I wasn't until that moment. So that's why we went down there for my individual training.
Yeah. Can you connect the dot between there and then, because there was and then until 2007 when the publications actually came out. Can you connect the dots between there?
For me, like I said, I did all of the word processing.
Okay, yeah.
Put it in some kind of concept form, because that's the only thing I knew.
Oh, okay.
Everything came through as concepts.
So that's what you were being trained for, to do that.
So I took all of the stuff that I had typed and spent years trying to put it together in some kind of form so that it would be both date-wise and concept-wise, and all the different concepts put into a special concept. So that's what I did for many years.
How long did that take?
Well, I don't know. It took, since we got married, I suppose 8 or 10 years.
Oh, it sounds like a lot of work.
To get it all typed and then put it into categories and go through everything, because I had so much to go through.
So did that training...
I started that in Spokane at Valley Ford before we ever got married. And then he helped me to put it on computer. Now the interesting
Who's mean he? Ken?
Ken.
Yeah.
Interesting thing was that I put him on these great big discs, and Ken's son-in-law had a computer that still would take these, so he transferred the big discs onto the 3 1/4, 3 1/2s, so I could put them on a real CD.
Oh, okay.
So that's how that worked.
Yeah. So the stages of technology shifting this information.
For what I needed.
Yeah.
And he was a word processor, a word processor, so he was able to set up what I needed.
Yeah.
Really, everything he's done is for what I needed. He was such a good person to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really worked that we were met. And
so it appears to me that training that you were receiving was actually designed so that you could coordinate and pull all this information that Lucille had drawn in and all the groups had drawn in into a format that could be actually taught.
Not the lessons, because she wrote the lessons. She did not have a group to communicate to. She wrote the lessons in the morning whenever she did her meditations.
Okay, so that was one piece of work, her writing the lessons.
Yeah.
And when you mean lessons, you're meaning you're referring to the series of Nature of the Soul, Corrective Thinking,
right?
Short and long versions of that.
Yes.
Those are all the lessons. And then there was the other thing, which is what you pulled together, which was
the concepts.
The concepts that came out of the group sessions.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. It's quite a body of work.
It is.
And you were actually trained. Was there anyone else trained to do that?
I don't know.
That teaching alignment that you know of?
I suppose. I suppose they each station had a certain part to do. Like Billy was doing healing work, and Margaret had the group down in Wrightwood, and I just don't know. I wasn't in that part. One other thing, while Lucille was in Spokane, we had a lot of sound meetings.
Oh, sound meetings, yeah.
Sound meetings. And we had them out at our house because we lived out in the country so that nobody else could hear us.
Yeah.
No neighbors. And we would form a group. Master R would tell us what each sound was going to be and what it was for. If it was for humanity, a particular piece of humanity, or for a group, for a magnetic field, for anything, he would tell us what it was for. And then Lucille would begin. And she would start by bah, because all this energy was in her throat, and she'd just go into hysterics. All this impact of energy, just finally she could settle down. And then she'd start an Om. And then another one would come in, and another one, all on her own voice. And there may be 6 or 7 Ohms coming through her voice. Now
so for 6 or 7 tones, you mean? Of an Om. Okay.
And it might fluctuate up and down. It might be harsh. You know, whatever was intended with the sound. And then Master R would ask us, go around the room, ask each one their comments.
Yeah.
And then he'd go on to something else.
So what do you think that, can you say a little bit more about what that was about?
Oh, yes. It was to get the group to raise enough in frequency so that she could bring through more concepts. I guess that's it.
Was the group toning, sounding as well with her? Or was...
No, just Lucille.
So then it was intended, if I get this straight, it's intended to raise the group vibration, so then more could come in.
Or they could serve. More they could serve.
Okay.
It would be like a group of Tibetans in the Himalaya mountains sitting around, and each one would put their piece of sound into her throat center.
Right. Yeah.
Marvelous. And we tried to record them, and they would not record.
That's interesting.
We had these great big reels for recorders, and they were such hard things to type off of, because you had to stop the thing after a sentence, and sometimes you'd forget the whole sentence and have to go back, and it was such a job, such a job.
Big job.
Yeah.
So
and then try to pick it up off of what's already been typed and try to make sense of it. Yeah.
So I want to just, your group, the group that you were in, you jumped from group to group, so you're a part of many groups, is that right?
No, I was just part of the Spokane group.
Okay, so that's Spokane group. That was your group, and then Lucille was jumping from group to group.
She established the throat center in Spokane and the Pacific Northwest. That was her mission here. And she developed the station for it.
Oh, okay.
She went to California and established the Heart Center group and established the station for it.
I see. Now I get you.
She went to Washington, D.C., and I don't know what happened there because I didn't get any communications from there or from Ann Arbor. I don't know. That part is Gretchen's doing a biography.
Yeah.
And she's going to have a book published
Yeah.
about all that.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah. Okay.
I sent all of Lucille's paperwork. She had files, and I boxed them all up and sent them to Gretchen.
Yeah.
So Gretchen could then go through and dig around and do her biography from there.
Yeah. Okay. So was it typical that both people in the couple were part of the group, or would one or the other of a couple be? Was
There
there
were mostly couples
Was
in
mostly
Lucille,
couples?
but mostly middle-aged women in Kurt's group.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
they don't work and they don't have a lot to do and they're curious.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But mostly.
So when you when you were in your group and you were receiving these lessons and working with Lucille, was the group pretty lackadaisical, or were they all pretty intent? They realized the importance of the work, or were they kind of like just having fun, or?
We were having fun until Master R came along, and then we were intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a little bit of both then.
Yeah.
Sounds
And
like.
when we were having a group communication, everything was focus.
Okay, I see. And
But when we had a break, why, everything was laughing and having a good time.
yeah. Okay, I got you. During your early days, did it feel like you were on a mission?
No.
No?
I never had any of that feeling.
No?
It was just natural. It came natural.
Given the accumulated wisdom, if you had 60 more years ahead of you, what would be your first endeavor to establish the center of synthesis in Estes Park?
I'd move there.
You'd move there?
Oh yes, definitely. I would teach. I would start teaching from the very first path of initiation lessons clear through everything that we have, so that we would have a big group in Estes Park, a magnetic field.
Right. So when you say teach, do you mean teach
I would be
physically?
teaching the physical.
So people there physically?
Yes.
So would that...
Out of the Estes Park area.
Right out of the Estes Park area?
And if there were people out in the world who wanted to come there for teaching, that would be available too. That's what I would be doing.
Yeah. What seemed impossible when first establishing the center that you now know can be achieved with effort?
The Estes Park?
Yeah. Because there was a group that tried to was establishing a physical center there back in the day.
Mm-hmm. They did establish a physical center.
And then...
All we have to do is make it bigger.
Okay.
I really believe that everything that we did with that headquarters lessons were part of establishing. This is another thought form.
Yeah.
It's there.
Right.
There is nothing that can break it.
Right. It's
We
already...
just have to get into that rhythm of bringing the synthesis energy through into whatever we're doing. Now, the point of everything that we did in Estes Park was for a particular group of people, a particular place in the world, a separate state of consciousness. That's what we have to work with. Particular.
Specific?
And as a group. And what we're doing in the gathering is part of that.
Right.
So that we're all coming together and working specifically as a group.
Right. So a group
This
focus.
is what is so important.
The group focus.
Yeah.
The ability of a group to all focus so specifically on one particular
Right.
thought form, creating one particular thought form.
And putting it out to humanity so that humanity can receive it.
Right. Okay. And
I mean, we're getting all these concepts, but they're not going out to humanity unless we get a specific gathering to do it in.
this is because of the power potential of a group.
Yes. Then the masters and everything in the ashram are right behind us.
Right.
And we have that terrific power then.
Right.
We're not doing it by ourselves.
Can't.
People incarnate and out of incarnation, and those people that are next to the masters, all the way down through every level, are behind us if we can do that.
Right. We create the channel, incarnate.
Yes.
Into
They can't
humanity.
do it. They can't do it. They have to have physical instruments to do it.
That's our middle position, right?
Yeah.
So we play the middle
in the
position.
cave.
Yeah.
The conscious soul incarnate.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
How would you? We have a couple of minutes. Looks like.
We're about done.
Well, we got about. Looks like either 2 or 10 minutes left. I can't read that. Can you read that?
Give me the time.
Can you read that here?
Oh, 50:37.
Okay, we got about 10 minutes left here. So let's just go a little bit farther into that, establishing the center at Este. So it seems like the vision that you have, if you had another 60 years, would be to establish a teaching center there. Is that right?
To establish
a
what?
teaching center there?
A teaching center, yes.
And so that teaching would not only teach the people in the area, but also advance disciples.
It would be broadcasting.
All right. So then it's
to
not
humanity.
Right. So teaching the ways to broadcast too. Then. All right. So then, and that looks like that would need a physical location to do that.
Within a 30-mile radius.
Yeah, some kind of a physical.
It can be done in the home.
Yeah.
And the people who are attracted will establish a physical center.
Right, because that's the.
The teacher does not. The students have to establish what they need to be taught.
Right, because that's their stepping foot. They're putting their foot into it.
Yeah.
That's the initiation.
And that is not the teacher's responsibility to
Right.
Build a building and have somebody come to it. But you start out really small and go into somebody's home. And it's wonderful because each home gets magnetized that way.
So you see the teachers moving out from or into the physical location of a student population, like Lucille did. She was going to different places, establishing, kind of dropping seeds.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And the importance of Este Park area, that 30-mile radius, is that it has the energy already in it.
Right.
So it can be just expanded.
It's already established.
Yeah, and that's established in the etheric.
Yes. And in the physical, because we have 3 in a nucleus there already.
Yeah, and they've been holding.
They are just waiting. They're bringing the synthesis energy in, and they're just waiting for us to take that energy and use it.
Right. Yeah, and that's their job.
That's their job, is just to bring that alignment in and hold it until we can, as a group receptive, take that energy and move it out to specifics.
Yeah, within the body of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Is there? I think we've pretty much covered all the questions that I have on my sheet here. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that symbol.
Oh yeah, okay, well and the symbol is, right behind Pam, you can see, I'll see if I can zoom in on it. There's the symbol that you're talking about here. And how did that come about?
I was headed to Estes Park. I flew into Denver and met Greg and Gretchen for lunch. And I told him that on the way in the plane, I kept getting this different part of a symbol. And I explained it to him and showed him the pieces of paper that where I had sketched each section of this symbol. And
excuse me just a minute. I just want to lay out a time frame. Whereabouts in the time frame is this? Is this where you've already had your training?
oh yes.
And this is later in
Later, much later. It was like 1980.
Okay. I just wanted to put
No,
it kind of...
no, this was after Lucille had passed away. She passed away in '84, so it was after that.
Okay. Yeah.
That,
So you started getting these pieces of symbols in meditation, and they were coming in one at a time. And
I wasn't really in meditation. They just kind of zapped me.
Okay, so they're just
So
popping
I
in.
started making different symbols on this piece of paper.
Yeah.
And I told Gretchen and Greg about it, and Greg said, "Just a minute, I'll be right back." So he went home and brought this back. Now, can you focus on this? It's too dark, I think. It probably won't show. But it's a block of wood with metal for the symbol.
Yeah, I think that might be. So see it, and so you can print with it. You can you could stamp that.
And Walter Smith was the one who had given it to Lucille, and Lucille had given it to Greg.
Greg
T.
Okay.
Whatever is.
Tzinberg or Tzinberg. I can never remember how to pronounce it. Zinberg?
Singberg, I think.
Greg T. we'll call it.
Yeah,
She gave it to, so Lucille gave it to Greg T.
And Greg brought it in to where we were eating lunch, and he said, "I didn't know why I had this, but I just kept it all this time.
Oh.
So this is yours." Because it was a symbol that I had been getting on the plane. It turned out that Walter Smith had used this symbol in his publishing. He published little bits and concepts and things. I didn't know that.
And Walter Smith was someone that was involved with Lucille?
Lucille's work, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I told my Japanese girlfriend in Spokane that I had received this symbol, and she saw it and she said, "Oh, that's what Walter was using." And she handed me this. Have I got it right side up?
Yeah.
It says Western Mandala.
She handed you that.
Yeah.
And what was the significance of that?
Well, that's this is the Western Mandala that Walter was using.
Oh, I get you. Okay.
But this came from Midori. So this was an interesting piece. And now the gathering group is using this symbol for our main symbol.
Yeah. And so the name of that symbol would be the Western Mandala then?
Yeah.
I'm going to do the numbers on that and see what they come up to.
And we have anyone who wants to know what each one of those things mean, I can email.
Okay. So
because my interpretation of what the symbol says is what I have.
Yeah. So you'd rather do that on email?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's a picture of the last picture I have of Lucille when she was walking with a cane.
Okay,
and
now
that's
which
Billy
one is
Roberts.
which? Okay, Billy.
Top two are Kurt and Pam.
There's Kurt and Pam. Hopefully this comes out.
And then she's sitting down.
Lucille's right in the middle here.
And I
And
don't
on the
remember
bottom right is Billy.
Billy, and I don't remember the other girl's name. She was traveling with Lucille. They went to California to get some acupuncture for her shoulders because her shoulders were in such pain.
Yeah.
And this is Kurt and I when we were married. We lived together for 40 years.
So you two were both involved, and did he take
Yes.
any training himself?
Well, he was in the class.
Yeah.
And in the group, yeah.
But it was after he died.
Yes, he did get training.
Good looking fella.
Power station training.
Did he? Yeah.
And this is where we lived for 40 years out at Valley Ford.
That's the house in Valleyford?
Yeah.
That's where the groups were held?
Yep. Or at her house. But this is
Lucille's
where the
house?
sound meetings were held.
Okay, so at her house, you mean Lucille's house?
Lucille's rented house in Spokane.
Yeah.
But that's where we live, Kurt and I. And this is Debbie.
This is the
her
baby.
daughter.
This is the baby that brought the presentation through.
Yes.
In a fashion. And Debbie, pretty young girl.
She was born in 1952.
Oh yeah, the year before I was born. And Debbie, does she presently have any contact with any of the...
She's in the Buddhist group in Denver.
Is she?
And she heals through color. As far as I know, that was years ago that I heard that.
Yeah.
But I have no connection.
Okay. Okay, well, is there anything else you can think of that you'd like to add, Pam?
Well, I'd like you to scan all my pictures,
Okay.
if you would.
Yeah, so these are all the pictures of headquarters
Students.
training.
Teacher training and the headquarters groups.
I'm going to take this camera off.
You're getting me.
You're getting me, I'm not supposed to be.
All right, well, here's some of the pictures of the groups.
And over here is
Quite a number of people.
a lot of great people.
And
Just take a big view of this one. And I'd like you to get up close to the middle. We had a conference in California about copyright. And these were the people that came. This is Lois Maxwell.
uh-huh.
This is Lucille in 1963. And this is about a week before she died in 84.
Yeah. And what do you mean by a group of the copyright?
Copywriting. We wanted to know if the lessons were still in copyright.
Okay.
And it was decided that it was all in public domain because every lesson, every communication had been given out to the groups that were there.
Yeah.
So it was in public domain because of that.
Right. And so you wanted to keep it in public domain.
And the original copyright of the Nature of the Soul lessons had gone past being...
It was out of date.
Out of date, yeah.
Yeah. So that means it's all in the public domain then.
Yes.
In other words. Yeah.
So anybody can use it any way they want, but try to keep the integrity of the original, because this is my focus, to keep it just as original as it possibly can.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that part of doing that is keeping it in the public domain, isn't it? Because then nobody can sell it, and so
Yeah.
quite often when
Yeah.
that happens is when things get mixed up.
and this is on my little, just all my cards and things that are in my office. Kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Pam.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.